The Jazwares Sonic the Hedgehog line is one of the most beloved and successful Sonic lines to date. It was popular with kids and adults as the figures were posable and had more than just the 4 major characters. But only after a 6-year run, Tomy got the license to make Sonic Boom stuff, but quickly started making the main series stuff, but not exactly like the ones Jazwares made. The figures had about 5 points of articulation, with most of the classic figures having 9 points of articulation. They also tried to make the figures in an accurate scale, which can cause some odd executions. Fans were not expecting this change in style, and were not happy with the results. In fact, the Tomy Sonic the Hedgehog line is one of the most controversial toy lines I have ever seen. And there's a problem with the line. Like Tomy's odd quality on their toys, people complaining about them on the internet, and the lack of availability. Not only is the Tomy Sonic line the most controversial toy line I have come across, but it's also an interesting one. Like I said, Jazwares Sonic lasted for only 6 years, and somewhat came into an abrupt end. There were some characters missing from the line, but why did it happen? Some say it was quality control, others say it was due to Sonic Boom, but those reasons have not been confirmed by Jazwares or Sega. Why did we got Tomy instead? And what is wrong with their Sonic line? My goal is to solve these mysteries and share my thoughts, so we can solve the Tomy Sonic problem. Before we talk about Tomy Sonic, let's talk about where Tomy came from. On February 2nd, 1924, Ichiro Tomiyama founded Tomiyama Toy Seisaku Sho. The company manufactured numerous toy airplanes, establishing a reputation in the industry linking the Tomiyama name with toy airplanes. The company would later expand its business through one industry-leading initiative after another, including the establishment of the first factory in the toy industry with an assembly line system, and the creation of a toy research department. In 1997, Tomy made a bunch of Pokemon figurines, and I consider their Pokemon line in general the best. In March of 2006, Takara merged with Tomy, and the company became Takara Tomy. But they were just called Tomy everywhere else. Tomy is still around to this day. Before we talk about the Tomy Sonic Collector series, we first have to mention Jazwares and their Sonic line, since it plays a huge part in Tomy. Jazwares was founded in 1997 in Sunrise, Florida. If you own a lot of Jazwares toys, you'll definitely know that Jazwares is basically the EA of toys. The quality on their products are always average and are known for mostly screwing up licenses. In 2008, Jazwares got the license to make Sonic toys. How were they? Well, unfortunately, I do not own any of them right now since they are crazy expensive online. But I've done a lot of research to know what they are. The 3-inch figures, well, they're not terrible, they're not very good either. One problem? They're too small to have a lot of articulation. This can cause off-looking sculpts around the elbows and knee joints. In addition to all of that, they can break really easily and off-scaling to each other. The only figure from the line that I consider good is Modern Metal Sonic plus Modern Dr. Robotnik and Charmy. However, the cons just outweigh the pros to me. But the 3-inch line, along with the other lines like the 5-inch line and the 10-inch line, they were huge successes. Many fans bought them and loved them. Jazwares made a lot of obscure characters in action figure form, but unfortunately, Jazwares' quality control was basically non-existent as the figures got more sloppier, loosier, and very destructible, and for the most part, a Jazwares toy.
I don't care about the children! I just care about their parents' money!
In very late 2014, they lost the Sonic license. Now, this is where the mystery begins. Why did Jazwares lost the Sonic license? There has been a lot of speculation about it, but not the real reason. I asked Jazwares about this whole thing on a Twitter account that they were active on, and what they said was somewhat interesting. They said that the contract expired and chose not to renew it. I asked why they didn't want to renew it, and they said that they wanted to focus on other licenses they have, which actually makes sense. Look, here are Jazwares' most popular licenses: Minecraft, Roblox, and Peppa Pig. These franchises are much more popular than Sonic nowadays, since they're much newer franchises. Were the toys great? Sculpt-wise, yes. The rest of them, no. Which is common, especially since they were made by the EA of toys, aka Jazwares. So this was the true reason why Jazwares lost the Sonic license. They just did not care about it. In 2014, Tomy got the license to make toys based off the TV show and spin-off series Sonic Boom. The line was not that great, but not that terrible either. The figures lack articulation compared to Jazwares, but at least they don't sacrifice any elbow and knee joints now that they don't have a lot of articulation, and the accessories and sets we got were good. But the real draw here is the paint job. Tomy really knew that Sonic Boom is for kids, just like the main series is. Before Tomy got the license to make toys for the regular series, the Boom figures had terrible paint jobs. While recent paint jobs on the Boom stuff has improved ever since the regular series toys came out, Metal Sonic was just overall trash since it lacks excellent paint details. But in 2016, Tomy's regular Sonic series made their debut with the 25th anniversary figures. Though this was their unofficial debut, it wasn't until 2017 when we got plushes and figures of both characters of the classic and modern series. The classic figures are probably the best out of all of them. They have additional articulation joints and overall look fantastic. Yeah, the scaling on Tails is off, but I don't care. New toys. Fans were also happy about a classic Knuckles. Ever since Jazwares announced that about a classic Knuckles figure existing, it just never existed, but Tomy just did it, and fans were glad. Oh yeah, by the way, Tomy has plans on making classic versions of Amy and Dr. Robotnik. And then we get to the modern figures. I really wish they had the same points of articulation as the classic figures, but no, they have the same articulation as the Boom figures. But since the modern designs were introduced in 1998, where toys at the time had limited articulation, it makes sense that they have the Boom articulation. But at least all of the figures, except for modern Metal Sonic, were superior to Jazwares' off-looking, easily breakable articulated figures. In my opinion, of course. Oh, they also have plushes, which, to be honest, kinda give me a Sine vibe, but unlike Sine, Tomy's plushes are posed and have facial expressions. Oh yeah, the Tomy Sonic line also includes fan favorites that would make a fan's mind blow.
First off, classic Supersonic, but wait a second, we're also getting a Chow too, but whoa, hold the phone, we're getting a Vector plush as well? Wait a second, Eggman and Amy too? These are all coming out in March? We're only gonna have to wait 3 months before these hit store shelves?
Overall, I think the Tomy Sonic line looks great. Not as good as Jakks Pacific's World Nintendo line, but great. But what happened? What's the problem with Tomy and their Sonic line, since I did said that the line was great? Well, let's take a look. For when there's ups, there's downs. The first controversy in the new Sonic Collector series lies in the articulation of the modern figures. I already said that it could have been better, but I still like the fact that Sonic does not have as much articulation, since he would have been a complete mess if he did. But not a lot of fans were happy with the results. I saw a bunch of fans writing about the articulation on the figures, and it's a shame too since they just came out and were much better than Jazwares, in my opinion. Granted, most of the articulation hate is indeed my fault. I made a video about this a year ago, and I really misled people. Comparing the modern figures to the Powerpuff Girls reboot was stupid of me. The fact that I called haters trollers, and also the fact that it was just an old video. I made a much better video clearing up my explanations and was received much more positively than my previous video I made. And I consider my previous rant from a year ago the worst video I've ever made. When Tomy showed off their 2018 catalog, the articulation hate surprisingly and immediately reduced. But why were the fanboys hating on the articulation? Well, most of these Tomy Sonic fans used to collect the Jazwares line, and that the Jazwares Sonic fans feel alienated and abandoned, and that they no longer matter. They probably feel this way because they've supported the Jazwares line, saw a glimmer of hope, and got Tomy Sonic instead. So I can really understand why they felt betrayed, but betraying the Jazwares fans was not the goal of the people behind Tomy. Like I said, Tomy wants to make their figures as accurate as possible. This is why you see Knuckles bigger than Sonic and Tails smaller than Sonic. Another controversy from the fans were the fact that some of the Tomy stuff lacked paint details. An example of this is the Metal Sonic comic pack. I can't say that the figures are bad since they do have great sculpts. It's just extremely disappointing that the fact that the Metal Sonics don't have a very good paint job, and that forced me to repaint them. The repaint looks better, but the paint I used were Tester's enamel, and enamel does not work well with Tomy plastic. It makes the figures feel sticky. However, this issue is only on modern Metal Sonic. The classic figure is still good, but after the result of the sticky paint, I'm still going to have to find a 3-inch Jazwares Metal Sonic, since this is the only Jazwares figure as of now that is superior to its Tomy counterpart. Even if I'm not able to get him for a good price, I'll still try and get him.
Maybe someday.
And finally, one of the most infamous controversy of all time is about this piece of plastic. GameStop leaked an official picture of the Sonic Forces pack exclusively at GameStop, and the picture had a modern Tails. The picture was very small and low quality, but one tweet from a guy had an in-hand picture of the pack, but claimed that Tails wasn't good. I couldn't really tell what's wrong with it since it was boxed, and the photo was low quality and the box was angled awkwardly. But the commenters said it was the legs, but it was hard for me to justify that. I was really worried that the figure would actually be as bad as the person said it is, but it wasn't until fellow YouTuber PatMac got the pack and posted much higher quality images of the figure pack. I was somewhat disappointed with the Tails, but I still can't justify that it's a bad figure, but it had problems. So here's a mini review on Tomy's modern Tails figure. Now the sculpt of this figure looks almost nice, but due to how accurate Tomy is at scaling, there is some sculpting that had to be laid off. First off, the torso does not look that great. It just makes his legs look thicker than usual, than it should be. But if you look closely at it, the legs do not cut off from the torso a lot, so at least I should give props to Tomy for doing that. Another problem to point out is that he looks much smaller than he should be, but that's just because he is posed. His left leg is curved, while his right leg is kind of barely curved. It does look straight, but you can tell it's barely curved. But if he was standing straight up, he would definitely look much better next to a character that is in Sonic, like, say, Knuckles. The great things about him is that despite the hiccups, I think he is the most accurate Tails figure we have gotten so far, with exceptions of maybe the Superposer and the Resource figure. Now, what I like the most part about this figure is the head, and the color he has is much more acceptable. I actually personally consider him superior to the Jazwares' messy Tails figure, since it has much more problems than Tomy's figure over here, but I'll save that for another time. However, I can't say if I recommend him or not due to what I'm going to be talking about, but it's your choice. Over the past weeks and months, the figure grew on me, and I am much more used to it now that I own it. But people really hate this figure so much. So much, in fact, that it's basically a meme. I know there are some people like me that actually like this figure, but for the most part, I'm the only person who likes this figure. Is there something that I see in this figure that others don't? I mean, all of this Tomy Sonic criticism we've been getting is actually making me want to stop collecting these figures. Well, to tell you the truth, I'm not a Sonic fan for the most part. Yeah, I know a lot of the characters' names in the lore, but I'm not interested in the games. Even if I do play any Sonic games, they just don't appeal to me a lot, except for these games. These games are great. The reason why I started collecting the Tomy Sonic line is because I wanted to try something new based on something that I'm not really interested in, and that really worked. The figures appeal to me, and my videos got a cult following. Not counting Pat Mac, I am basically the go-to person in terms of Tomy Sonic. Heck, I have a connection with Tomy a lot lately, so I'm somewhat basically considered the unofficial Tomy Sonic spokesman. But anyways, I thought that I would enjoy the fan base and get excited over the stuff that's coming out. But if this fan base is only just about hatred and being mean-spirited towards a tiny piece of plastic made for children, were they even a fan of the Tomy Sonic line to begin with? I contacted Tomy about this whole Modern Tales issue, and here's what they said to me. For a Modern Tales figure, in addition to the style guide that we have to follow in keeping with the character appearance and size, we also have engineering limitations in producing these on a larger scale. While we always do our best to stay true to the character, it was an engineering challenge to fit the hip joints and the tail insert in the slim body. Similar to our other Boom figures, we had to sacrifice torso for articulation. Thank you for understanding. Basically, the Modern Tales figure wasn't supposed to look like this in the first place. It was only a design flaw that they had to face. I know a lot of people are confused about his torso and legs, since the Boom figures' torso and legs looked much better, but unlike the modern figures, the Boom figures' legs are much smaller, which can lead to them to break easily, as demonstrated by this old Pat Mac video, and it just makes sense looking at it. I know I get really pissed when people talk trash about Tomy's Modern Tales figure, but for any haters out there, you have to remind yourselves that Tomy can't please all of the people all the time. But they tried. Tomy has an interesting history with releasing their products. They first show them off in the catalog, as well as Toy Fair, alongside the release dates. But for some reason, there has always been delays. This is a great example with Tomy and their Sonic line. This is what Tomy wanted the 2017 plushes to look like. And here's what we got in reality. You see, Tomy has been infamous with delaying their products, and this shows. However, the stuff has been coming out decently on time, but the availability is lacking. Toy Wiz, a complete scalper train, always gets a shipment of these early. A few hobby shops support Toy Wiz, thus able to acquire them early. In my experience, I live in Illinois. The closest mall from where I live is the Woodville Mall in Schaumburg. There is an outlet store called Gamers World, where they sell random crap. But they support Toy Wiz and get the Tomy Sonic stuff early, and marks them down for less. This is why I am usually the first or second person to make a video on these, since they came from an online presence. Gamers World is not the only place I go to, as I use Toys R Us as an afterthought. For example, I never got the plushes since they were not that interesting to me, but after the plushes got released at Toys R Us, I got Modern Sonic and Modern Tales. Excellent figures. But Toys R Us America closed, and it makes me wonder what will happen to Tomy Sonic. Well, all of the availability problem is going to be solved. I will still be buying the most wanted Sonic stuff at Gamers World, but for people that just want to get them at retail and not an outlet chain or a hobby shop, then
come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look and you'll see.
Target! Target, surprisingly, is carrying the new Tomy Sonic stuff. They released the plushes from late 2017 and mid 2018. They also released the larger Modern Sonic and Metal Sonic plush, as well as the Chow Pack that I made a video on. If Target keeps supporting the Tomy Sonic line, then I have high hopes that other retail stores will do the same, thus not making them as demanding as they are now. Overall, the Tomy Sonic line has formed quite a reputation over the last 2 years. Is all of it justified? I'd say no. It's not perfect, but it's far from the most terrible toys made by any toy company. It kind of stinks that the Tomy Sonic line has been getting a lot of hate that I think are deemed unnecessary. But if you are looking to be upset at anyone, then go send a strongly worded message to Tomy on their website, but please, no harassing. So will any of this problem be solved? Absolutely. The Tomy 2018 catalog has received the most fanfare in a while, and there are secrets that we can get excited about. Also, Target will be selling the Tomy Sonic stuff, and I hope they continue to push this even further. As for the line itself, give it a chance. If you are some die-hard Sonic fan, then this line is definitely for you. Tomy is doing a great job with both quality and character choices so far, and many of their products will be highly demanded in the future. Don't miss your chance to pick them up. I would like to thank Pat Mac and the Chill Pikachu for the Tomy Sonic stuff that's been coming out, as well as their influence on me. I would also like to thank you, the fans, for all of the support I got. To be honest, I wouldn't blame anybody for the hate of Modern Tales. Yes, he's not a perfect figure in any way, but to me, he's kind of a unique figure. If Tomy did a good job with Pokemon, then Tomy could do a good job with Sonic too. And as always, thanks for watching.